Hello and welcome back to Savage Garden, an Into You the Vampire podcast sampling immortality one morsel at a time. I'm Kat and I'm joined once more by Naomi as we delve into every corner of the Anne Rice universe. And this week we are doing one final bonus stop off before we delve into series 2 and get to that trial that we really don't want to get to. We are looking at the 2002 film Queen of the Damned. We figured technically it's out of story order, but we figured everyone is, waiting with bated breath to see who is going to be announced as Akasha. So why not go back and have a look at the, original on-screen version played by Alea. So this is going to be a bit of a deep dive into that film, which I have seen multiple times. I think I first watched it when I was 18 or 19. But for Naomi, this was a first time watch. So, Naomi, how did we feel watching Queen of the Damned?
How the fuck have you seen this movie multiple times? I mean, oh my God. So, dear listeners, I was like 30 seconds into it and messaging Kat going, is that meant to be a French accent? Like, what the hell was going on? And then I think because I kept looking stuff up. So I think it took me about 3.5 hours to watch this hour and 44-minute movie. My three takeaways before we get into it. If you took Lestat, stripped him of everything that makes him Lestat, his entire backstory, his sexuality, his key relationships with his mother, with Armand, with well, I suppose it goes into Marius, but not really, and very, very particularly his relationships with Claudia and Louis, you would have Stuart Townsend's Lestat, who is a completely generic vampire called Lestat. Secondly, it was so boring. Oh my God, it was so dull. I was just like, when is anything going to happen? And the third thing that really shocked me was how little Akasha is in it. She's in it for about 10 minutes. And I mean, extraordinary. Absolutely, absolutely iconic. And we have to start the episode by saying what an absolute tragedy it was to lose Elia at such an incredibly young age of 22. I mean, she was clearly an incredible talent, and yeah, the world very, very much is a sadder place without her in it. But Akasha is in this for about 10 minutes. I just kept messaging Kat going, if Akasha doesn't pitch up soon, I'm going to kick off. Like, oh my God. So Queen of the Damned. So I know that Sam Reed has spoken about this before because it was filmed in Australia and it was filmed when he was in school, which makes me feel ancient. And it was directed by an Aussie. It was directed by Michael Romer. And when I started looking everybody up, what I thought, with the exception of the costume designer, this seems to have pretty much killed everybody's careers. Like,
Yeah.
nobody has done well after this film. So Michael Romer, I mean, he's done very well in TV, but this was the biggest film he has ever directed, and he never directed a significant movie since. So he clearly went immediately to director jail. He did direct 23 episodes of Battlestar Galactica, and interestingly, 9 episodes of Hannibal, where he could presumably do all of the appropriate subtext stuff that he couldn't do in this movie, because Louis isn't even mentioned once.
He is not mentioned at all. Not at all.
Not once. It was his penultimate movie, and clearly, I didn't look up the box office, but I imagine it was nothing. And it was clearly he went immediately to director jail. It was written by, well, interestingly, IMDb lists Anne Rice, but I noticed when I watched it last night, she is not listed. And I have to imagine that she was beside herself when she saw the finished product. But it was written by Scott Abbott and Michael Petroni. Scott Abbott, again, doesn't appear to have had a really significant career since. He wrote 2 episodes of Rosemary's Baby, which was the TV version that starred Zoe Saldana. But we have to give it up for Michael Petroni because he wrote what is frankly a classic of cinema, a masterpiece, unheralded in its time, but a truly exceptional piece of work. That is The Pope's Exorcist.
Really? So he wrote that Russell Crowe got to ride around on that little Vespa. God bless him.
Yeah, he wrote The Pope's Exorcist. I mean, I think he co-wrote it, but yeah, he wrote The Pope's Exorcist, which I don't care. I love that movie so much. I love that Russell Crowe was like, "Should I get in shape? No,
Yeah.
I'm just going to wander around in holiday dad bod mode." And to be honest, sexy as hell. Is the Italian accent even remotely close? No. Is it a pure, unadulterated joy to watch that I have watched on multiple occasions? Yes, it is. Michael Petroni also wrote The Right, which is a terrible, terrible Anthony Hopkins starring horror, and The Book Thief. But yeah, nobody else in this. As we go on, we'll talk about the actors. Like nobody has done well out of this movie. And then we have Stuart Townsend, who is Irish, by the way. The only two things I really knew about Stuart Townsend before looking him up was that he was obviously infamously cast as Aragon and
Mm.
then fucked it in the first week. I mean, he just didn't do the training. He didn't look right. He was obviously aware that he'd been miscast, and I imagine that's a really miserable position to be in. I don't think he's really
Mm.
spoken about it much. But he was obviously aware, and I mean, he got called out by Ian McKellen at one of the events, going, one of like the first casting is going, "You do want to be here, don't you?" And he obviously just went no and left. And then, of course, they stumbled into the best Aragon imaginable. And the other thing I knew was that he fumbled Charlize Theron. And if I had fumbled
Yeah.
Charlize Theron, I would currently be in a nunnery somewhere. How do you cheat on Charlize Theron? How?
Yeah. Silly man.
Goddess of a woman. How do you fumble Charlize? And yeah, he's not done much since. He went on to do the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is obviously a
Yeah.
infamous flop as Dorian Gray. But other than that, he's done quite a bit of TV. He was in one of those Kate Hudson rom-coms that she was doing millions of around 2000 that all big sort of run into one, called About Adam. But other than
Yeah.
that, he has mostly done TV and small project things. This movie, The Wrath of Akasha, came from beyond and cursed everyone that was in this terrible, terrible movie. I mean, before we start getting into it and start going through it sort of like scene by scene, what is it about it that you love?
So obviously I watched it. It would have been, the film came out 2002. I would have got it on DVD like 2003. So I would have been about 18, 19. And it was very much, I think, just I was young. I hadn't seen many films at that point. It was a vampire film. I like vampires. And it's the soundtrack. Like I was very much a new metal kid at that point in time, and this has got, new metal royalty Jonathan Davis making the music. So yeah, I got it. I think it was one of the first DVDs I've got. I still have it. It's one of those crappy cardboard ones, that Warner's did with like the cardboard sleeve and then like the plastic clip. And it was one of the few ones I had with me when I was away at uni, so I would stick it on for the music, primarily, but just it's a really weird way I write sometimes. Like if I need motivating to write, I will put a bad film on because I'm not going to then get distracted and get absorbed and watch the film. It's almost punishment if I stop writing, is because I have to then sit and watch whatever terrible film I've put on. So it helped get my dissertation written. And yeah, it's just, I know it's trash, but it's just one of those things that I'm like, yeah, but I can just watch it because I don't actually have to watch it because it makes no sense. None of it makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, it's just the times just rack up. Yeah.
I mean, I get it because, like, I have, if I think about it, movies like The Mummy, Deep Rising, Deep Blue Sea. I have to stop and watch Prometheus whenever that appears. I've watched these movies over and over, but I just can't imagine watching this one. And as you said, yeah, the music is by Jonathan Davis, who's the lead vocalist of Korn. I believe he's the singing voice. Is that right?
He is that singing voice in the film, but then there was like a rights issue when it came to the CD release. So for the CD release, Lestat is replaced by several different singers. So each song is sung by a different artist. So there was Wayne Static of Static X, David Drayman of Disturbed, Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. He does the Death Valley song, Forsaken. The Why Won't You Die, that one, which always gets stuck in my head, even though I didn't watch it last night, knowing that you were watching it, that song just earwormed its way in. And then, unfortunately, one of them is sung by Marilyn Manson, so that one now gets a
Yeah,
skip when it
yeah,
comes up on the
wise
Spotify
choice.
list. But yeah, so it was like Jonathan Davis doing the voice in the film, but then on the CD, it was this collection of again of sort of like new metal royalty, which I think it's one of those films where very much the soundtrack is better than the film.
Sounds to me like they were too bloody cheap to pay for Jonathan Davis for the CD, is what it sounds like.
I think it was some contractual thing. It was like a different studio were handling the release to
Uh,
his record label, and like his record label wouldn't release him to appear on it. But he did a number of years ago at Download, he did a solo set as Jonathan Davis, and he did sing several of the Queen of the Damned songs, which was pretty awesome.
Amazing. And his co-composer for the songs and the music was Richard Gibbs, who again, when I looked him up, he seems to have mostly worked on Battlestar Galactica, which is presumably the connection with Michael Roma. But yeah, wild, wild. I mean, the whole thing is like all the way through it, I was just like texting you, who the fuck is Jesse? Why is Jesse
Yeah.
important? The whole thing is completely insane. So getting into it, we start with like the beautiful like images of Akasha and Enkel, and they did that very well as the statues. And then we start with Lestat waking up, and he's waking up because he's heard the band, who don't even get a name before he just appears, poor bastards. And I was just like, this is, I'm sorry, but this is not a French accent. Stuart Townsend seems to be doing a kind of a generic European accent. And I mean, I know that Sam Reed sometimes gets a lot of stick online for his French accent, which to my ears sounds fine, but I'm not French, so I can't really comment. But like, we're talking night and day here in terms of accent. I mean, Stuart Townsend's just decided to be, I don't know, mildly fruity European on everything. The terrible 90s rock wakes the stat, which is fine because in the book it's terrible 80s rock, so we can't really, query with that. And obviously, this is what happens in the Vampire Lestat, not Queen of the Damned. And then we go in, and they're all in, supposedly all in Lestat's old house in New Orleans, and they're all topless. And we get the first kind of glimpse of him. And the first look at him, I thought was quite interesting because I felt like they tried to marry kind of a mix on the Tom Cruise Lestat. Because when we
Yeah.
first see him, he's got like a Tom Cruise-esque outfit that we saw in Interview with the Vampire, and he's got quite the bleach. He seems to have the most bleached hair in that scene, which then switches to dark. And they've just gone bloody wild with the talcum powder on his face. And he goes into the band, but like I just kept thinking, if I was this band, and then all of a sudden some guy appeared in the room, shirtless apart from leather, sitting on top of my speakers, screeching, I would assume it was a crackhead and go and find a gun. Like, why do they think like we don't even hear him? He's just sort of like going, "Rah!" And they're all like, "Wow, man, your voice is so good." I was like, "I'm sorry, were we listening to the same thing?" And and I mean, the scene is straight from the book that he basically tells them all their dreams are going to come true, and they all agree to it. But I have to assume that they were all stoned off their tits to be able to be like, "Yeah, you know what? This terrible looking crackhead has come in and said he's going to make us all rich. Fine, let's go for it." And yeah, that is, I mean, they don't get a name. They don't get called Satan's Night Out. None of them get names in the film either.
No, they rarely featured.
Mm. They get a really, so all the way through this film, there's a common theme of people trying to sound English that are probably all native Aussies.
Yes.
There's not a single authentic sounding English accent, with the obvious exception of Paul McGann. Everyone else has this, and it's like, if you're English and you kind of hear it, it's like it's just sort of this sort of over enunciation, and like there's a sort of a slowness to the delivery that always says you are not English and pretending to be, or British, or whatever accent they're trying to do within the fair UK. And so, yeah, none of we get them at that terrible press conference that is supposedly full of Brits, but doesn't appear to be actually full of a single Brit. But they don't get a single name. And I'm like, no, we have to actually name the band members. I mean, I can't believe in the series, like that we're not going to give Noah Reid, for example, a name, or that we're not going to
Yeah.
feature Cookie strongly. Wild. And then we go straight into lots of 90s era music videos, which are all grey and dark and staticky and lots of wavy effects. I mean, to be honest, I enjoyed the music videos more than I enjoyed anything else.
Music videos are a special feature on the DVD, and it's a shame that they are hacked up in the film because they are quite cool. There's one of them, I think it's for Redeemer, which is basically them reenacting Nosferatu with Lestat like dressed as Nosferatu, like reenacting the scenes. I think they're all available like on like YouTube, and reinforces the whole thing that Lestat is, giving away vampire secrets. Like even in his music videos, he is poking fun at the vampire culture that has been seen in cinema. So it's a shame, especially because like I think MTV had a massive hand in the production of this. So you think that they might maybe want to feature some music videos a little bit more, because they are one of the strongest bits. But again, it's that case of it's the soundtrack that's better than the film. So of course the music videos would be some of the more interesting bits.
I mean, the whole thing is so 90s. Like, all the outfits, all of Jesse's outfits, all of Jesse's makeup, the whole thing is just insane. And we cut to London, where we have this again terrible British press conference where Lestat is mystifyingly popular. So they've gone from that little scene to being like the biggest rock band on the planet without us seeing
Yeah.
a single thing in between, which I feel like we should have had a montage there. There should have been a little bit of a montage of them playing at different things to show how they have become this popular. And all I could think was, God bless him, Stuart Townsend is so wildly uncharismatic in the role.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the lightness it needs. I don't know how to describe it. There's you know Sam Reid is Lestat, and indeed Tom Cruise is Lestat. Because we shouldn't dismiss him. They're both very light, very agile, very feline, very fun in the role. It's very playful. Whereas he just doesn't have that. He just kind of glowers and spits off lines that somebody thought were sexy. And it's just, yeah, it's very weird. My favorite little background player who we have to give a shout out to is Roger, who is presumably a nod to Roger from the books, who is Lestat's like driver or helper or whatever. It's just basically getting him people to eat,
Yeah.
and very chill about the fact that he's getting him people to eat. It's like he gets these two poor girls into this massive pad of his, which I liked. It was all dressed very baroquely. It was all very ridiculous. And then he decides to what? Clamber up the wall in order to eat them?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that is quite Lestat. It's like so over the top. Just so unnecessary. But it feels like they were like, you know what? We haven't really had him done anything vampiric yet. So shall we have him climb up the wall and onto the ceiling and then launch himself at these poor girls? And again, he didn't need to do that. He could have just drained them and left them.
Yeah, it's a weird scene, and it's like how, like, I don't know, like their foreplay is they all like crawl around on the floor after each other, which is it's just so cringe. It's just so cringe. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
just,
there's a whole bit where they're
oh
almost like crawling towards him with that,
yeah,
and it's like Michael Angel, do you think this is what women do on dates? Do you think that we get
yeah,
the guy home and then we're like so overcome with lust that we're like crawling on our hands and knees, so excited with practically our tongues lolling out? The whole thing was
yeah,
truly, truly bizarre. And then we cut to Jessie, who is the female, bizarrely, the female protagonist of this. And I had
yes,
to look up Jessie because, we've always been really honest about the fact that we've not read all the books, which I'm trying to kind of, I'm sort of halfway through the Vampire Lestat. But the problem is, like, he cries so much. I really do fear for Sam Reed's hydration levels. I mean, the poor bastard is going through it. So in the novels, and of course, there's this massive, expansive universe, which this film makes the terrible error of trying to cover without covering when they would have been far better off not
yes,
doing any of that. So Jessie is born, she's like a grandniece of one of these ancient vampires. She has supernatural powers. She works for the Telemasker. She meets Claudia's ghost, and I'm going to be honest, all I could think of when I read that was either Bailey or Delaney portraying Claudia and being like, who the fuck is this bitch? Like, what? I'm supposed to give advice to this wet creature? No. She gets killed at Lestat's gig, and then she's made a vampire by, I'm not sure I'm going to be pronouncing this correctly, Maharet, who is the character that Lena Rowland plays, and who is a huge part of Queen of the Damned. That she and her sister are twin witches that Akasha treats horrifically. And yeah, Jessie, she's played by Marguerite Moreau, who the most recent thing she's been in, she appears to have been in 4 episodes of The Pit, which we just have to complain, still has not screened in the UK.
yes.
Why has no one bought The Pit? Buy The Pit. Netflix, get on this shit. What are you doing? And she was also in 7 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, but until she was in The Pit, um, she hadn't been in anything either. And I have to give it up for how 90s Jessie looks in this picture. So she's got the incredibly dusty, sparkly eyeshadow all over that we now know makes us look 50s, but we all thought was incredibly cool at the time to put all the sparkly eyeshadow all over our lids. She's wearing the sort of cultural appropriation red. Is it red? That the sort of the faintly Indian inspired brocade jacket. And the whole thing, her whole outfit, her whole look is just so 2000s. It's hilarious. So early 2000s.
Yeah, there's a lot of early 2000s in this.
Yeah, I mean, like the outfit she wears when she goes to meet Lestat, when she's wearing like the plaid red, the tartan red, and the little choker.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
again, the really, really, really heavy makeup that reminded me of Urban Legends because that was about around about the same time.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah.
If you watch it, like the makeup, and I mean, it's different now. We don't like, I'm heavily into my makeup and like I watch all these wizards on TikTok, but we didn't do any of that stuff back then. There was no contouring, there was no highlight. We scribbled cheap crap from Rimmel all over our eyelids and called it a day. And if it looked the same the next day, great. And so it's all so heavy and so unattractive. But of course, that was just the style at the time. And we have this really weird scene where she appears to be effectively sort of a mild research assistant at the Talamasca, and yet
Yeah.
she is addressing an entire room of like upper echelon of the Talamasca. And she has discovered in the lyrics to Redeemer a link to a place in London that she becomes convinced is a coven because somebody watched Blade and thought it was really cool. Was Blade out by
Yeah.
this time?
Yeah, Blade was 97.
Yeah, so Blade had been out, and they were like, Blade was really fucking cool, so we should do something Blade related. I kind of zoned out of her talk because she started talking about meatpacking plants in London, and that just completely took me out.
Yeah, I think she was trying to say that that's where it was now or something. Like it was like an old part of the community, but it was now a meatpacking district. But this pub still existed.
We don't have meatpacking districts.
No.
This is a New York thing. We don't have
Yeah.
meat pack. We have like old tanneries and stuff like that. I mean, where I lived, where I live now is well, it's bougie, but only because I bought it 20 years ago when I could buy it. But it's in a nice little area. But it is when I bought it, I had to have all these environmental surveys because technically it's in East London, so there were tanneries here. So technically, the ground and the groundwater is considered to be contaminated at a very minor level by everything that was there. But yeah, we don't have meat packing plants, Jesse. Like, what the fuck? And then we have Paul McGann as David Talbot, who is the only one in this movie that is way too good for this. What are we doing here? What are we doing here for? And of course, David Talbot is such a key figure because he is the central protagonist in Tale of the Body Thief, and he becomes besties with Lestat. I mean, the general view is that probably in this series he's going to be replaced by Daniel or merged with Daniel. Which would kind of make sense. Because I don't know, I just can't see them introducing anyone now that's going to be like a bestie with Lestat to that extent. We'll see. We can't. Who knows what Roland Jones is going to do? The man's a madman. Then we get to a flashback, and at this point, it did prompt another anguished voice note because why the fuck did they decide to change Lestat's story? So we have a flashback of Marius, who is now randomly Lestat's maker. So in this film, Marius just, I don't know, grabs Lestat. We're never really clear from where, takes him to the Night Island, I guess, and then makes him a vampire with no buy or leave. And the making scene is basically Claudia's scene, in that as soon as he's made, he's basically saying more, which is what Claudia does. But why? Why make that change? Was Magnus just too rapey for them?
I don't know. It is because it was. I mean, I watched the films before I like dabbled in any of the books. So, and as somebody like that, I just assumed that that was the law because it makes no sense to change the law. Maybe they just like read the wrong line and, because they both start like MA, maybe they just like read the wrong name in the script and then they're like, oh, it's too late to change it now. Stuart's learned his lines. We don't want to confuse him. Maybe something like that.
I mean, the whole point of Magnus's turning is that Lestat doesn't want to be a vampire. He is taken against his will, either literally or metaphorically, depending on your viewpoint, raped by Magnus. And then Magnus drains him, and he repeatedly refuses to drink. And when Magnus calls him an idiot, he says, "I'm not an idiot, I'm brave." And then eventually he kind of gets this life forced upon him. Whereas here, Lestat sort of like, yeah, okay, you got Marius going num num num, and then Lestat's like, oh, okay, fair enough, I'll be a vampire. Yay, more, more, more. The whole thing is just bizarre. Because obviously the time, because I kept saying, why is there no Louis? And you just kept messaging back, this is the early 2000s, it couldn't be gay.
Yes, but that's the thing, wasn't it? That was the unfortunate thing about that era. I mean, like it was a time where you're gay was just used for everything. It was. I mean, you look at like American Pie and stuff, it's full of horrible words, to do with queer people and things, and it was just wasn't done. This was a shiny film for teenagers, and it was very much that mindset of, oh, we don't want to be putting that out there. I mean, obviously, even the Brad Pitt Tom Cruise one didn't go as hard as it could have. It definitely went harder than this because I think everybody that he's Lestat is seen to be remotely interested in is female. Arrived at the band, it's the female like keyboardist who he kind of seduces, and then when he gets turned, it's the female violinist on the beach that he's drawn to. So yeah, they definitely kept him towards the women, which the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, there's no mention of Louis doesn't make any sense because this is presumably after he has been, put in the ground or whatever by Louis and Claudia, and this is him kind of awakening from that 100 years later. So surely there would be some sort of acknowledgement of like the reason he went to sleep.
Well, the biggest issue is that the vampires being furious at him for giving away their secret and his determination to do so, none of that makes any real thematic sense, stripped to the context, which is that he becomes a rock star to take the heat off of Louis because Louis has published Interview with the Vampire. All the
Yeah,
vampires want to kill Louis because he's published the book. And so Lestat's like, you know what? What's the best way of keeping my beloved Louis safe? I'm going to be a rock star. Because in Lestat's poodle brain, that's logic.
yeah,
Not I'll go be with Louis and keep him safe, or I'll, try and talk to the vampires, or I'll get Louis protection. No. I'll go be a rock star, and then everyone will be so angry at me, they will try and kill me and leave Louis alone. And so all the scenes of him being so enthusiastic about spreading the vampire's secrets, none of it makes sense in the context of this film. He just comes across as like a nihilist douchebag because it's not
yeah.
really clear why he's doing any of it. I mean, I did spot like when we get to the scene where they all attack him, the shot of the two of them glaring at him with the flashy eyes. I noticed they've ripped that for their little trailer that they showed at SDCC. Showed that obviously
Yeah.
as a clear nod to it, which I thought was quite good fun. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to watch a straight washed Lestat movie, this is that movie. So yeah, we get Marius turning him, which again is like, so Marius is played by Vincent Perez. Again, he's a Swiss actor. The thing he's been in the most recently, I haven't watched it yet actually, but I have seen it advertised all over Netflix. It's Hostage. It's the one with Saran Jones where she's the prime minister and I think her husband gets kidnapped.
Yeah, I've not seen that yet. My big thing with Vincent Perez is that he was obviously the second iteration of the Crow in the Crow City of Angels. He was Ash.
So yes, he was in the Crow City of Angels and he was in the computer game, I believe, as well.
Mm.
And Kat is also mystifyingly in love with all iterations of the Crow.
Not all, not the Wicked Prayer, not Salvation. The City of Angels and the Bill Skarsgård one, which is not a remake. They just sillily gave the characters the same names as the original, and that is why it is hated. It's a hill that I will die on quite happily. But yes, I do like the Crow. I do like the Crow
I love
films.
your love for the Crow films.
Yeah. I mean, something that we should obviously we get to this flashback, but we get to this flashback because she's reading Lestat's journal.
I know, and I was about to say no, no, no.
I mean, that's a big rule break right there.
I mean, obviously, it's a huge breach of the great laws, which, as we see in the series, that's what condemns poor Claudia. But also Lestat. Do we see Lestat as a journaler? I don't see Lestat
No.
as a journaler. The whole point again of the series is that I'm sorry, of the books, not the series, is that Lestat is basically functionally illiterate. which they played up a little bit in the series, like in the beautiful, beautiful scene where he writes the letter to Louis, which is also him being an absolute fucking chaos demon, because there's no way he wrote that scene before he knew they were planning to write that letter before he knew they were planning to kill him. There are spelling errors throughout if you look at it on screen, because he's learned English from coming over on the boat, and his mother, as a
Yeah.
means of controlling him, never taught him to read because she sucks. Sorry. I'm looking forward to Jennifer Ellie, but Gabrielle, or Gabriella as they've decided to go with, absolutely sucks. And yeah, Lestat is not a journaler. Lestat is not a journaler. I'm sorry. And also the notion that the Talamasca would have that journal, I don't know. The whole thing is wild. And yeah, we have the violinist scene, which was irritating, but I've decided to see it as a nod, obviously, to Nikki, even though we couldn't mention Nikki because Nikki is a boy and we're not allowed to acknowledge
Yeah.
the fact that Lestat has sex with boys because, ew, early 2000s, everybody. And then we do get a scene that is from the books, which is Lestat discovering the statues of Akasha and Enkel, and his wicked violin playing, which was very good. I didn't actually look, but I would be intrigued to see who the violinist was. Encourages Akasha to come back, and she gets him to drink from her. And then we do actually get one of the few very cool scenes in it where we get all the flashbacks with Leah, and it's very, early 2000s metal video, but it is really cool. It is very cool. And then we're back to, after that, obviously Marius is like, what the fuck, bro? Let's not be messing with the statues of the two incredibly powerful vampires. Let's just leave them alone. Which I'm with Marius on this one. Also, we have Marius being kind of a protagonist here without any obviously acknowledgement of the fact that he's one of the creepiest people in the book series. One of my favorite things about the recent SDCC press tour was Eric Bogosian keeps saying he wants to be Marius, and every single time he does it, Jacob Anderson just takes his microphone away from him and tells him he needs to read the books. It's like, no, Eric, he's a pedophile, Eric. He takes Almond when he's a child, Eric. Read them, for Christ's sake. You're the one half of Devil's Minion. But yeah, then we have Jessie being, frankly, as dumb as a fucking bucket of rocks when she decides, as a human being, that she's just going to wander into this movie's version of the Blade Club.
I do like the goth club because obviously goths can only dress in leather.
Yep.
I particularly like the vampiress who is in like the Union Jack sort of like Spice Girls leather bralettes because
Oh, yeah.
we're in England, patriotic vampire. Yeah, it's thank God we had stuff like True Blood that came out and showed like a better version of a vampire bar.
Yeah, because this is just, it's like, okay, so we can't do the blood shower thing, which everybody wants, because
Yeah,
obviously that's cool. Although I did like how in What We Do in the Shadows, they discussed the logistics of that and realized it wouldn't work because the blood would clot too quickly. That was good fun. That was fair. That was fair. Nadia was very wise to realize that was quite difficult to actually do. But it's just, again, it's like somebody that's not a goth or not even remotely in that culture, um, deciding this is what it looks like. I mean, every time I've been to Florida, I end up, and it's always the taxi drivers, finding someone who will tell me without the slightest hesitation that they are a vampire or a werewolf, which is always
nice.
good. Yeah. I had a really long conversation with a werewolf once. He was busy telling me all about the various different werewolf clans. And there's not really much you can do when you're in a long journey to the airport. Are you just like, okay, good. And I've met multiple people who've claimed themselves to be vampires. And I mean, even they dress better than the vampire goths in this like club. I did like her Princess Leia buns. Those are quite
Yeah,
cool. It's probably the most entertaining she looks, actually. And then they put the vampires in so much pancake makeup and coral lipstick through this. It's hilarious. And then she has to be rescued by Lestat because she's an abject moron. And I mean, what did she think she could do? Just wander into a club and drop Marius's name, and everyone was going to be like, "Oh, cool, human, we'll let you be."
Yeah.
Like, we don't wander into a lion enclosure and start, quoting lines from The Lion King in the vague hope that the lions won't eat us. And what was she thinking? So he has to save her, which is, again, I'm not really sure Lestat would have cared enough about her to save her. We get the ridiculous line of boo when
Yes. I love that line.
oh, so stupid. And yeah, Lestat mystifyingly lets her go. And then we come back to Marius coming in to see Lestat. And again, it's not tremendously Lestat decor. I don't know, it's very all this, I mean, I suppose again in the early 2000s, I guess industrial chic was considered
Yes.
very rock star because none of it feels like Lestat. It's very devoid of life. It's very like the Dubai apartment that Louis and Armand have. But I did quite like Lestat's turquoise paisley number that he meets Marius in. And then we have this little scene where they go and sit and chat on the Vampire Lestat billboard. And I did get quite sad. Could you get the massive shot of Tower Records in the background? Long departed, long
Yeah.
departed. And it is at 51 minutes into this absolute snooze fest that finally Akasha appears. Holy God. And I mean, that costume is so iconic. And I looked it up, and the costume designer was Angus Strathy, who I assume is an Aussie. And he is an Oscar winner for being a joint Oscar winner for the costume designs of, again, one of the most iconic films, which is Moulin Rouge. Along with
Nice.
Catherine Martin, he won the Oscar for Moulin Rouge. I always feel like you're always going to know at the point at which I just lose it because I'm going to start wandering around in commissioned versions of Satine's red dress. Just be out there in the streets going to Tesco's in the full version of the red dress. Or the white dress that she wears at the end, the sari inspired dress when she starts singing Come What May, shortly before she, spoiler alert, dies. I mean, they are the most stunning outfits. So yeah, he won an Oscar for that alongside Catherine Martin. He was also, alongside Catherine, the costume designer for Strictly Ballroom. And this man is very, very booked and busy. He's done, like, a few of the things he's done are Lost in Space, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a series of unfortunate events, the TV series, not the film. And he recently did the first episode of Black Mirror, which I haven't seen, as everyone has told me how incredibly depressing it is. I think it's called Common People, but he was so the man is booked, the man is busy, and it's really I mean, I think the biggest challenge to the TV series and Roland Jones and the new costume designer on that is, how do you do Akasha? Because you can't copy the costume, but you
No.
can't, you're going to have to go in a really different way because the costume is so iconic. And it was actually quite fun to see it because I had always assumed it was pure gold, the outfit that she first appears in with a headdress. And it's not. It's various different shades of metal. There's a lot of turquoise in it, a lot of mother of pearl. I've no idea how they got the breastplate to stay on because it's barely attached to anything. I mean, my favorite thing every Halloween is seeing all the incredible black women dress up as Akasha. I know that someone
Yeah.
dressed as Akasha for SDCC as well, and Jacob and Sam noticed her in the audience. It is an extraordinary outfit and a very difficult outfit to pull off because, there ain't much to it, to be frank.
Yeah, and it's such a good entrance thing, and I think the fact that this film is it's terrible, but and she is only in, like you said, 10 minutes of it, and yet she is the one thing.
She's the
She's the
best thing in
one
it.
thing that everybody, yeah, she's the one thing that everybody remembers. Like you say, Queen of the Damned, and it's that sort of DVD image of her in that costume that springs to mind. Stuart Townsend is, way beneath that in terms of, remembrance, but Alea in that thing, and just, she turns up in the Admiral, and just, vampire and vampire violence. It's, it's very much she's supposed to be the queen of the vampires. Why is she? Oh, okay. Why is she murdering everybody? But it's just such a great entrance for the character, and just is like, okay, yes, we are nearly an hour in, but something might happen now.
Yeah, because that is the thing. It takes 50 minutes and literally nothing has happened. We've seen Lestat get turned, which is a bastard, which is a complete like mangling of his backstory anyway. We've seen Jesse, and we've seen a few vampires be angry at Lestat, and we are 51 minutes into an hour and 44-minute movie. I mean, it's incredible. And yeah, she's great. She turns everyone. I mean, obviously, the early 2000s CGI with the fire effects is dodgy as hell, but it's part of
Yes.
the charm, to be honest. And she walks through the flames, and then we have Jessie, who again, dumb as a bucket of frogs, decides to go seek out Lestat because what? She feels like they've got a connection from that 20 seconds when he didn't kill her. And so we've got Roger again being hilarious about taking the Episcopalian girl away and being like, no, this is a good thing. Don't worry. Yeah, it was a good thing because you just delivered her to a death, Roger. And we've got Jessie in her absolute peak 2000s outfit in the black collar and the tartan dress. And that's when we get the horrific line, which tickles Sam Reed, of boo back.
Yeah. I've been on another podcast talking about Queen of the Damned. It was the Vampire Videos one, and like they bring you out of like the podcast kit thing, and I did say boo, and they didn't get the reference. They obviously hadn't studied it.
They didn't
It's a
get
bit
it.
hard
No,
one.
you'd have to be like, you have to immediately be like, boo back. That's what you have
Yeah,
to do.
yeah.
I think he said on the official podcast that they should probably bring back because it was the interviewer that was great. That it's his favorite line, and that he was trying to get Roland Jones to do a nod to it, and Roland, understandably, is like, no, we're not doing that. It's a terrible line delivered with no panache, no nothing. It just lands like concrete, but it is ridiculous. And yeah, well, then we have this very soft focus shot of them flying because she's told Lestat she wants to know what it's like. Again, no self-preservation. This woman has
No,
absolutely no self-preservation whatsoever. They've got no chemistry. And then
no,
she seems surprised they've got no chemistry. Holy God. To be fair, no one in this film has any chemistry with each other. No one.
no.
Um, Aaliyah does her absolute best, but she doesn't have any chemistry with Stuart Townsend, who, I mean, she was so young making this film. And he must have been in his 30s because I looked, he's about 52 now. So, yeah, none of it, or maybe late 20s, but there is just no chemistry between anyone in this. And she seems surprised when I mean, it's like, oh, is the girl okay? Belle, what part of vampires eat people are you struggling to grasp?
We work for the Talamasca.
You work for this. She's like, because Lestat saves the girl from the other vampire, and she's all like, oh, is she all right? Bitch, that's food. You're food. Like, this is the thing, like, we can all be like, oh, they're all lovely. You would have to be so sure of yourself that you could entertain or delight Lestat enough that he wouldn't just eat you on the spot.
Yeah.
Claudia would eat you on the spot. You've got no chance. Louis would probably eat you on the spot, to be honest. Louis is feral. We don't make enough. I mean, in the books, Akasha does say that Louis is the most feral of the vampires, and she is correct. And I love that Jacob Anderson plays that. The man is feral. He's going to eat you. Um,
Yeah.
you probably got a good chance with Daniel if you could entertain Daniel enough. He might take a little bit, but he's probably not going to eat you. But you're going to have to be really, really, really fucking sure that Lestat's going to find you enchanting to not
Yeah.
just chow down. Um, yeah. And I mean, it's just the lack of self-preservation. And then we go to the big Death Valley, where I'm sorry, that band has not attracted enough people. Like that crowd scene. And I was wondering because that crowd scene didn't look CGI'd, but I mean, it must have been.
It was real. It was real.
Yeah.
They hired 3,000 goths in Australia to come and film the scene, and they were there for like 2 days, like dancing to the same song over and over again, or pretending to dance to the same song over and over again, because obviously that gets added in post.
I mean, insane. Because I was looking at this and I was like, A, no way is this band big enough. B, that crowd looks real. And as you've just said, it is real. That's insane. Oh my God. I mean, I suppose there's not much going on in certain parts of Australia, so it might have entertained them. Money's money. And I did enjoy the nonsense of the vampires attacking on stage. It was all like very, I don't know why all the vampires were wearing black capes.
I guess they've like unionized or something to like go against a stat, and it's like their way of knowing who each other is, so they don't, I don't know,
Yes,
accidentally
but
attack somebody they
I
shouldn't. But
suppose so. It doesn't make any sense. They all attack Lestat on stage, all wearing the exact same outfits. And he doesn't do too badly. And then Marius looking exactly the same, which I was like, why? Again, did we feel that we couldn't put Marius in current clothes because you've not established him enough and you think we wouldn't understand who he was if he isn't dressed exactly the same as when he made him? Presumably, yes. So Lestat and Marius do okay by themselves, but then get promptly massively surrounded. At which point, Akasha blows up the stage, as to be frank, is her right, and kidnaps Lestat. And when this happens in the series, I am going to be devastated because it is inevitably going to be after Louis declares his love to Lestat for the first time, and then Akasha's going to come in and fuck everything up, and I'm going to be very sad.
it doesn't happen here though, because Louis doesn't exist.
No, here it didn't matter. Akasha could steal the stat because no one cared. And then we get the bathtub scene, which a lot of people mention and seems to show up in a lot of gifs. Um, which again is only really sexy because of her.
Yeah.
They just don't have chemistry. She looks ridiculously young next to him, which is a bit uncomfortable. It works because of her. We also don't get enough of a understanding that he's under her spell.
Mm.
Because again, the point is she steals him, she takes him to be her consort, she feeds him so much blood. She effectively keeps him on a chemical leash with her blood. Um, encourages him to be like, I don't know, kind of her concept of masculinity. Because the whole point of Akasha is that she fancies killing 90% of the male population. Which, on any given day, I go back and forth on, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I
fair.
think that it's fair. Um, and then we get scenes with the vampire elders. And the problem is, Anne Rice had books and books and books of vampire elder lore about all of these people, but we make no attempt to explain any of that here.
No.
None of it. So we have Lena Olin show up as Maharet, but we don't explain who she is. We don't explain her backstory. We don't explain her relationship to Akasha. She just pitches up. And, I feel like more Lena Olin is always a good thing. She was in Mindhunter as Anatov's partner, wasn't she, in Mindhunter? And she
Mm.
was also in Alias, where I had the most obscene crush on her imaginable as Sydney's truly, truly terrible mother. But yeah, they sort of show up and they don't really do anything. And then again, we get this shot, which should be a really big shot of Lestat and Akasha in sunlight. But there's no build up, there's no understanding that. I mean, she explains it in the scene, but we're like, not like, oh my God, vampires are in the light. It's because she's given him so much blood that he can just stand in sunlight. And this should be a massive moment for Lestat, and it's just not.
Mm.
It's just like tossed off because he's like, oh no, I'm on a beach and everyone's dead. Well, yeah, because in the book she shows up and basically just eats the entire island. So without any of this, we don't really understand anything that's going on. And yeah, and then it just moves so quickly from that point. I mean, Akasha has barely been introduced, and then we get to this big confrontation scene. Now, the confrontation scene is in the books. Akasha basically Akasha pitches up. She awakens. She kills a ton of vampires, including Baby Jenks, who is going to be in the new series. She only really saves the people that Lestat loves, which, of course, because in this we haven't introduced any of Lestat's friends, we don't see her sparing Louis or anybody else. And then she plans to off 90% of the male populace, which, again, fair dues. But we don't get any of the backstory or about, because like everyone's like, Akasha, girl boss. No, 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 no. I mean, she encourages, before she becomes a vampire, she the twins Maharet and Makari, she has them raped by her whole council. She has their eyes plucked out, their tongues amputated. This is not a good girl. She
No.
basically does horrendous things to anyone who stands against her. But obviously, all of this backstory doesn't exist. We don't even have Makari, or Makar, who is the person who actually kills her. Because in here, they change it to Maharat is the one that kills her. And she basically shows up. All the vampires go, nah, bitch, we ain't following you. Lestat easily escapes her like thrall in order to save Jessie.
Yeah, well, Jessie's amazing. She's like so charismatic. Why wouldn't you?
Poor girl. I mean, that is Aaliyah is the only one that is charismatic in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, Jessie, there's just nothing. I mean, I appreciate it's an appallingly written character, but there's just no spark, no nothing. It's not clear why she's interested in Lestat other than ooh vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, if she wanted to ooh vampire, she could have just pitched up at the coven and been like, "Hi, I'm a vampire groupie. One of you turn me." And they still would
Yeah.
have eaten her anyway. But there's no understanding of Lestat because all she's got is the journal, which again doesn't explain Nikki or Louis or Gabrielle or anything. All she knows about Lestat is that, well, what, he was a vampire in London. That's about it.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything else. And yeah, and I mean, Aaliyah shows up in the most astonishing outfit in that beautiful bronze breastplate with the bronze headdress. And she gets murdered in 30 seconds by all of these elders draining her. And again, that's not how it goes. Akasha is too powerful to be drained by this bunch of Muppets that we barely know. The whole point is that, after everything, Makar comes out of nowhere and beheads her. who's not been seen for. I mean, it's a bit of a out of left field thing in Anne Rice's writing because, I mean, this is a woman who had Lestat meet aliens in Atlantis. She did what the fuck she wanted. And I respect that. I love that for her. But yeah, Akasha is killed by one of the witch twins coming back after 6,000 years, after like massive battles and everything else. It just pictures up when she's weakened and beheads her. But here, she gets drained by a bunch of older vampires in Velvet who've not been introduced. Who, if you haven't read Anne Rice or bothered to go and look up stuff, like I can't imagine anyone watching this film that wasn't familiar had a slightest clue who any of these people were.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. Like I knew Lestat from the Tom Cruise Brad Pitt film, but everything outside of that, I was just like, okay, there's people, there's vampires. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just like, okay, the old musty vampires in the velvet outfits pitch up. They all drain her. She dies in 30 seconds, which no. I mean, no, we do not get rid of Akasha quite that easily, my friends. And then, yeah, no one dies because the whole point is Akasha kills like a fuck ton of people.
Hmm.
Whereas here, she just kind of kills a small island, and everyone's like, well, they probably weren't white anyway, so we don't care. There's no. The woman is committing mass murder, and nobody really blinks. And then she just dies, and then Lestat turns Jesse.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Lestat did make a ton of fledglings in the book, all of whom we promptly forgot about, other than Louis and Claudia. So, I mean, he does have form. He turns Rowan, or does he turn Rowan? Well, he makes a ton of fledglings and then forgets they exist. But he makes Jesse, and then we have this weird postscript where he returns the journal to David Tolbert, who is like beside himself with emotion about getting Lestat's journal back. Why? Why?
Yeah. Well, he's also like obsessed with Marius, isn't he, as well? And then like Marius kind of like rocks up and is like, "Hello, David."
Which is the only queer bit in it, and it's like, again, we're not too sure whether he's planning on eating him or, like, I don't know, making him his best friend. Yeah, I mean, because he shows up. We have Paul McGann bothering to pitch up at the Death Valley scene for 2 seconds where he meets Marius, and then he's gone. And then it ends with like slow mo of Lestat and Jesse. And I was like,
So bad.
no,
It's
so
so bad. They're
bad,
like they're like
so
walking on like
bad.
London. They're walking on like London Bridge or something, and obviously it's
Yeah, I
like,
think they're
oh
meant to be on
yeah.
like Tower Bridge, and that's like, no, this is so bad. And I was just, I mean, it's just an hour and 44 minutes of nothing. And it is fascinating. As someone who's never watched it before and has only ever seen, obviously, as you said, the DVD cover and maybe heard a little bit of the CDs and seen all the shots of Aaliyah, I assumed she was in it from like minute one. So it was a real shock to me that she gets less than 10 minutes of screen time. And we don't really get to see her do anything because she kills a shitty vampire club. She blows up a few vampires at the gig, steals the stat, frolics in a bar, and dies. I feel like this is not doing justice to our girl. I mean, she's a horrendous creature, Akasha, but the whole point is she's supposed to be an ancient embodiment of evil.
Mm.
That the entirety of like the most powerful vampires in the land have to band together. There's no mention of Armand either.
No, I think the problem with the film is its reason for being created was that the studio were going to lose the rights to Anne Rice's stuff unless they made something. So they
Ah, the
quickly rushed
old,
this
the
original.
old Amazing
Yeah,
Superman issue. Yeah.
yeah. So they quickly rushed it into production, but rather than going, shall we do the Vampire Lestat or shall we do Queen of the Damned? They kind of went, oh, let's. We probably won't get a chance to do another one. Let's kind of squish them together, but then move pieces around to change law, and it's just too overstuffed. Like the whole Talamasca storyline isn't needed. It just bloats it bloats the film.
Could have been completely dropped. I mean, why not just do, because we discussed this when we were talking about SDCC and people being upset, some of the fans being upset about all the obvious advertising tie-ins. Yes, because a vampire rock star is cool and easy to market. So why that? So the only reason they clearly didn't want to do the vampire Lestat is because they didn't want to include Nicky, and they didn't want to include him fucking his mother and all the rest of it. So they wanted Lestat, but they didn't want any of the gay stuff or any of the awkward stuff. So they kind of mashed the two together. And again, I can understand wanting a Kasha. I mean, everyone wants a Kasha. I mean, I am going, hopefully, I mean, I say hopefully because you have to reserve a panel. I'm hopefully going to see the Stat panel at New York Comic Con. I want an Akasha reveal. I've seen the names Jenny Smollett thrown around. She would be amazing. She was in was she Arkham? No, my brain is gone. My brain always goes when I go to say things, but she's great. She's a phenomenal. But I also think it could be equally somebody we've never heard of. I mean, nobody came close to the guesswork for anybody that was cast as
No.
no. So I don't think. Oh, that was it. Lovecraft Country. That was what I was looking for. That was the word I was searching for. I mean, she would be a phenomenal Akasha, but that doesn't mean that it will be her. I mean, nobody named, as we said, nobody had any of the actors down. I mean, the actor they've picked for Magnus, I mean, he's purely theatrical. So
Yeah.
and he's not. I even love the fact that he's quite active on his Instagram, and he's still not mentioned Interview with the Vampire. He's all about his theatre company and the productions that he's in. He's not even mentioned it, and I love that for him. Dude doesn't
Yeah.
care. Respect. Whereas like all of the band members have all been hanging out and being besties and going and seeing things. So yeah, a joy. But no, I get them using Akasha. I do. I too, if I was like, okay, well, let's build the movie around her. But you had to build the movie around her. It would
Yeah.
have to have been like, even if you wanted to sanitize everything, you had to do her creation story, how she became Akasha, her relationship with the vampires, how she became Stone, all the rest of it. Whereas she's in it for about 9 minutes.
Yeah, and the thing is, as well, some people might think, oh, well, that was probably because, Alea tragically died. But they had already finished filming. They were in post-production on this when she died. I think her brother was brought on to, because they sounded quite similar, he was brought in to do some ADR for some of her lines. But the character of Akasha that is in the film is as it was in the script, because you could easily think, oh well, she died mid-production, then they had to change things around and that's why she's not in it. But no, they had filmed it because she was I think she was like just starting one of the Matrix sequels, because that was going to be her next gig after this, and then I think she ended up being replaced by Jada Pinkett Smith in those films. So she had very much finished. So it is really curious that they were like, let's just use this character there. And just the fact that most of the film is trying to push it as this big sort of like Twilight-esque romance between Jesse and Lestat,
Yes,
when
straight
they
watch
have
Lestat
zero,
and Jesse.
yeah,
Who gives a fuck?
they have no chemistry. I guess the Talamasca thing is potentially because what Buffy was still big in the early 2000s, so it was like the Watchers Council and Buffy and Angel, human, like vampire hunter slash vampire falling in love. But in none of their scenes did I remotely believe that they were attracted to each other or in love. Like, if it had been when we first met Jessie, she was already like uber obsessed with Lestat, not just like, oh guys, I think this dude is sharing vampire secrets. But if she had been like fanatical about him, then I could understand where she then goes. But as you said earlier, she just kind of wants to be a vampire, and she's just gonna like just jump on anybody that can help her achieve that.
I mean, she is, I mean, that is the thing. She is just a straight up vampire groupie
Yeah,
and an idiotic vampire groupie at that, who should have been killed for being such an idiot. She's not anything. She's not, I mean, if they wanted to do the Talamasca, they could have had them all be kind of young and sexy and fun, or just had cut all of the scenes and just had her with Paul McGann in the similar Anthony Stewart head role.
yeah,
And she's not anything. She's not a girl boss, cool vampire hunter, Talamasca person, because she's not. She's just an idiot who blunders into a vampire coven in the hope that dropping Marius's name will save her. She's not obsessed with Lestat. She's just a moron who mystifyingly is alive at the end of the film. I mean,
yeah,
there's no way that Lestat in any incarnation would be remotely interested. I mean, Lestat did fall in love at the drop of a hat in the books. And that, I think, is going to be one of the biggest challenge to book readers, in that I just don't think they're going to do that in the series, because it's been too well established that he's one, he will fuck anything that moves. As Sam Marie says, he loves many, but he loves one. He only loves Louis. I mean, like,
yeah,
if it had been like a sexual thing, that, I mean, again, they have no chemistry. If he's like, damn, Jesse, I could understand it. But like the notion that they walked off together as like companions, no, 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 no. Like the whole thing is just nonsensical. None of her story works because she's not the Buffy vampire hunter. She's also not the audience entry person who
no,
stumbles across it. I feel like that would have been better, just to have cut Talamasca out entirely and had her, I don't know, blunder into seeing Lestat eat somebody and then become obsessed and go, see, we could have all the typical, montages where she hunts down the info at the library and finds out all about him and starts stalking him. We have her as part of the world already, but effectively in a very minor role. And then none of her story makes sense. They don't try to explain any of the elders to the point where they may as well have left them all out. They may as well have
no,
left everybody apart from Marius out, because it doesn't make sense. Marius is given no personality, no backstory, to the extent we're cheering for him, and then you read the book and you're like, shit. I mean, Lestat and Marius are like, he's the only one that can kind of control, well, not control, but is the only one that can be like, Lestat, for the fuck's sake, no. So he's like a mentor to Lestat in the books. But he's definitely not his maker. And again, they presumably just did that because they felt Magnus was too rapey, or they didn't want to have anything to do with Nikki, anything to do with Louis, but not even to include Armand as one of the elders at the end. I mean, like, even if you were just going to do an Easter egg, you could have just had one of them be called Armand,
yeah,
I mean, like the whole elder storyline should have just gone. And if you were going to be that shit, why not just have Lestat defeat? I suppose he does defeat Akasha because he's the one that drains her until Marowette steps in. But yeah, so bad. I just watching it and I was like, again, Akasha is a terrible creature. She's the embodiment of evil, and yet I'm sat here going, girl, you did not get treated appropriately. This is terrible. I find the whole thing baffling. If they were going to straight wash Lestat, remove his entirety of his backstory, the whole thing should have been focused on Akasha. Akasha's backstory, how Akasha becomes a vampire, and then, I don't know, just have Lestat wake her up with his music and go from there.
yeah. I mean, I think now that you've seen this film, I think it's quite obvious why a lot of people had a lot of trepidation when the TV series was
Yes,
announced. And
my God.
it's probably why a lot of people haven't ventured to it, like those who were familiar with the original interview film and then watched Queen of the Damned. I think you can understand their reluctance to take anybody's word about how good the show is because there's such a dumpster fire of a film that it's like really, I mean, to be fair, like how could it be worse than that? Like the series had a very low bar after Queen of the
I was
Damned, but I
about
think
to
that it's
say,
why a lot of people are still a bit like, yeah, but do I want to
I
watch
can
it?
I can understand now why Sam Reed said he was so terrified before the first SCCC panel. Because if this is what people had watched, fucking hell. Um, and yeah, there are still like a lot of book purists who are really upset with the changes to the series, which is primarily seems to be about the fact that the vampires have sex and the fact that the queer, well, it wasn't even subtext, but okay, if we're going to be generous, the subtext became text. But I'm just like, how can you be upset at this beautifully, beautifully done gothic horror where everyone is putting their heart and soul into it when this was the previous iteration of Lestat? I mean, he's had a rough journey. I don't particularly care for the audiobooks. The audiobooks that are out there, I think there is a different narrator somewhere, but you have to kind of search for it a bit because the sound quality isn't as good. But the narrator on the audiobooks talks like kind of Lestat by way of like Count Duckula. It's sort of
Oh,
like, hi, it's all very vampire like this. It's all a very French version of this kind of an accent. And it's just, it's not great. I mean, I'd kill to have the cast to do it, but I don't know if the Anne Rice estate will permit it. Christopher Rice is very separate from the AMC stuff. He just, I mean, I think people assume he hates the series. I have no idea if he does or not. He won't talk about it, but it's a very different entity. But I have to think that if given this was the last time Lestat was on screen, people should be delighted with Sam Jacob and what Roland Jones are doing. My God in heaven. It's like watching an Amdram version, this Queen of the Damned. It's terrible. It's just not Lestat. I think that's the thing. It's just a generic vampire that they chose to call Lestat.
yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons why I have been excited for series three is because I do have that sort of like guilty pleasure from watching this film when I was young. We always attach to the wrong films when we're young, but seeing this story done correctly is really exciting. And given what the show has already done with series one and two, they're obviously the right people to reclaim this story for something far better than it has been.
Well, yeah, I mean, I still can't get over how little Akasha is in it. And I think that is a testament to how toweringly iconic Aaliyah's look
Yeah.
is in this, that I just assumed that she was in it the whole way through. And this is a really terrible iteration of Akasha's story. I mean, just appalling. But she looks stunning. I mean, we've both got the t-shirt that is it.
Pizza Eaters.
So we both had the Queen of the Damned. I've got the long sleeve, you've got the short sleeve, which is the video cover, and it's phenomenal because, of course, who would want Aaliyah on your chest? I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they didn't give the band names. They didn't do anything. So, and none of it makes sense, Sean, of the context that he's doing it to save Louis. None of it does. So to be able to see, and I mean, the poor guy is obviously going to be going through it. I mean, the man's going to be haunted. We know Delaney's on set. We've seen Nikki wandering around. This poor bastard is going to be doing his concerts just like it's just going to be all these people in the audience haunting him. This is why we can't be touching the drug blood, Lestat. Stay away from the drug blood. The drug blood is no good for you, Lestat. It's going to have Claudia up there in your ear all the time, telling you what a moron you are, which is fair. I mean, I'm so, so happy that whatever iteration that Delaney Hales is back, she's a phenomenal actress. Very, very excited to see Jennifer Ellie as Gabrielle too. Still moderately irritated by the name change, but it's fine. Get over it.
Are you going to be watching Queen of the Damned ever again, or is that gone
Absolutely
into?
fucking not. No, what I will probably do actually, you'll have to send me the links. I will probably look out for the music videos. I'll probably go and check out the music videos. I can't conceive of ever needing to watch this movie again, but I would go and find the music videos because I think they'd be quite good fun to watch. But otherwise, no, this movie. I think the biggest thing is that I was just so bored. And like, I'm not, please don't think that I am a snob when it comes to movies. God, I love my trash. I watched, what was it, the Anaconda, the Search for the Blood Orchid the other day. And I've watched that more than once. And that is a truly terrible movie in which only maybe one person can act, and only then on a good day with, a following wind. So I'm not a snob. I will watch any odd nonsense. I mean, part of it was that when was working really hard, I would tend to watch films that were an hour and a half before going to bed. And when you're
Yeah.
watching hour and a half films, they tend to be horror or they tend to be junky little action stuff. And you are not we're not watching the best examples here. We're not going to bed with Criterion closet picks. We're going to bed with trash.
No.
So, I am not above watching Queen of the Damned in any way, shape, or form. I just couldn't get over how boring it was. That was the main thing. Like
Yeah, that is the thing.
nothing
Yeah,
happens.
it's a slog. It's a slog to get from scene to scene. But you've done it. That's potentially
Yay!
the hardest thing
I've
that you
done
have.
it! Woo!
Yeah, it's potentially the hardest thing that you'll have to do for the podcast. So you have survived. I what I would do is I will try and find those videos and I will link them in the show notes for anybody
Yes,
listening
so we
that
can all
also
watch
wants
them.
to.
That would be good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that we can all give them a look. And yeah, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of this Queen of the Damned chapter. We can purge Stuart Townsend from my mind. We'll keep Alea there because she's beautiful. And we will be back next time as we get into series 2.
My least favorite episode is the first episode, but has the two scenes that I adore more than anything else in the series, which is Jacob Anderson sobbing over realizing that Claudia could dream, which I think, fuck you, each and every one of you Emmy voters that doesn't have the courage to be invested in genre. I am sorry that, I mean, we love Pedro Pascal. The notion that Pedro got nominated for an Emmy over Jacob Anderson for this series, nope, sorry. Not in my world, not in my universe. And yeah, the you and me and you speech, which is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, very excited to talk about that. Very excited to talk about Claudia and Louise' rather grim traipse across Europe.
Yep, and in the meantime, you can find links to socials and everything in the show notes. And yeah, join us next time where we talk about season 2, episode 1. What can the damned really say to the damned?